Remember how awesome poker tournaments used to be? You'd flip on ESPN, listen to Norm and Lon count their divorces, and watch some total novice take down the biggest poker tournament of their life?
Another amateur, another improbable winner.
Anybody could win. Accountants, marine biologists, even alcoholics. Now when you tune into a poker tournament, you get the distinct privilege of watching two grown men compete to see who has the best Mitch McConnell impression. What happened to the blind raises, the massive punts, the ICM torches? Are we truly past that era of poker? I was beginning to accept that sad, sad fate, and then I played this tournament. I show up to the poker room on a random Saturday night looking to play some cash when I discover that there's a $200 tournament with a $10,000 bad beat jackpot. Not only that, but the bad beat jackpot qualifier, which is normally at aces full of jacks, has been lowered all the way down to jacks full of aces. So you've got my attention. I grab a seating chip and head to the table with my $400,000 in starting chips. The first interesting hand I'm involved in starts when the low jack, high jack, and cutoff all limp before the button raises to 10,000. I'm in the small blind with pocket eights and about 400,000 in chips. With a hand like pocket fives or pocket sixes, I'd probably just call here and try and set mine, but I think pocket eights is strong enough to warrant a 3-bet, so I go ahead and re-raise here to 45,000. Two of the limpers make the fold, but the cutoff goes for the old limp call 3-bet, very nice. The button calls as well, so the three of us are off to a flop with a huge pot already. The flop comes ace-10-4, and though my specific hand is total garbage, I have a significant range advantage here and shouldn't ever get raised, so I decide to c-bet small for 20,000. The cutoff makes the call before the button says fuck your range advantage and goes all in for about 120,000. Obviously, I can't continue, so I get out of the way, but the cutoff goes deep into the tank. It looks like he's got a hand like ace-7 and is trying to decide if his kicker is good. Maybe a hand like jack-10, trying to decide if he's getting the pot odds to suck out. Eventually though, we do see him make the call, and he has one of those hands we anticipated, deuce-3 offsuit. The board runs out clean and the button scoops this pot with ace-8 offsuit. A couple of key takeaways from this hand. Number 1, what the fuck did I just witness? More seriously though, when you're at the table and you see someone do something that's a little bit outside the norm, it might be profitable to open up your range and play more hands against them. So later on, when I see that Mr. Deuce 3 is limped in, I decide to overlimp with 4-6 offsuit on the button, though according to my coach, this might be a little too loose. The small blind completes, the big blind checks, and the 6 of us see a king 5 tray rainbow flop, giving me an open-ended straight draw. A tight player in the big blind leads for 10,000, and our friend in the hijack makes the call. I consider raising here in position to maybe take it down, but I'm pretty sure if I ask the hijack to define the term good laydown, he would say it's the title of the newest Johnny Sins film. I don't think he's folding much, so I decide to just make the call. Speaking of Johnny Sins, the dealer decides to nut all over the table when they deliver the 7 of hearts on the turn. Both players check to me, and now it's time to start exploiting those loose calls. I overbet for 75,000. I'm fully expecting the tight player in the big blind to fold, but the hijack to make the call, and instead we get the opposite, as the big blind makes the call, but the hijack folds. Off to the river now, looking to fade a heart and maybe a king, so when it falls the 3 of diamonds, I'm feeling pretty good about my hand. The big blind checks once more, and now it's time to figure out how much value I can extract. This player has a reputation of playing very snug and is definitely the type to make hero folds. Then again, he did call a sizable turn overbet, so he might be inclined to just call here once more. With those two competing factors, I settle on a size of 125,000, about 60% of the pot. This sends my opponent into deep contemplation. Finally, after about 40 seconds, I see my opponent flick something into the middle, it's his chips, he makes the call. I table my hand, it's good, and I take down a massive pot at this point in the tournament. A couple levels pass before this hand that starts with the cutoff limping and the button raising, but only to 2 big blinds. Choosing this raise size against a limper is basically like holding up this sign at the table. So when I look down at ace-jack in the small blind, I have a pretty easy 3-bet. The cutoff and button both make the call, so all of a sudden this pot has ballooned to almost 400,000 and we are heading three-handed to the flop, probably needing some help. That's exactly what I get when the dealer delivers 8-6-4 with 3 clubs. I've got the nut flush draw and 2 overs. I start things off with a c-bet of 100,000, 1/4 pot, which prompts a call from the cutoff and a fold from the button. So now I'm heads up against the loosest player in the tournament, praying for a club. Instead, we get the 10 of diamonds, and now I'm faced with the most important decision of the hand. Now normally with the cutoff having less than a pot size bet behind, I would just go all in, trying to incentivize folds from hands like 6-7, pocket 7s, maybe even an 8. But against this particular player, I'm a little skittish. Remember, this is the guy who limp called a 3-bet with deuce 3 offsuit. He might look down at bottom pair and realize that he's basically at top of range, so I don't love the idea of trying to get him to fold. Instead, I'd like to ensure I can see the river for as cheaply as possible, so I go for the block bet, betting 100,000 into 600,000 or 16% pot. The cool thing about utilizing the micro penis of bet sizes here is not only will I rarely get raised, but I'll sometimes get called by a worse hand, like king queen or queen jack with a single club. So this bet is operating on a couple of different levels, and I'm pretty pleased with my decision to utilize it when my opponent makes the call. So off to a huge river, one of us will be scooping this massive pot and going into break as the chip leader, the other one will be left with crumbs. I am sweating bullets when the dealer delivers an absolutely devastating card.
But not for me!
It's the deuce of clubs, I've got the nut flush, I'm the greatest poker player alive. At this point, my opponent only has about 300,000 left, so I sized down and bet 250,000. It looks like he's a little bit scared of the 4 flush as he manages to get away, but it doesn't matter. I scoop a pot of almost 800,000, 2 starting stacks. This pushes me past 1.2 million, and after the add-on for 400k, I'm in solid position as one of the chip leaders heading into the break. Before we continue with the tournament, a quick shout out to the Poker Room as they were celebrating the film Titanic on this particular night. Now they didn't show the movie or anything, but they did turn their air conditioning so low that I felt like a passenger on the ship. Seriously, it got so cold in the Poker Room that they started handing out blankets. I'm not sure why they would purchase and maintain a set of blankets rather than just, turn up the thermostat, but I like to think it's because they're so committed to honoring the legacy of Jack Dawson. So kudos to the Poker Room for making this an unforgettable experience. As I mentioned, I've got one of the big stacks at this point in the tournament, but there are a few short stacks, one of whom makes his presence known when he jams all in the hijack for 380,000. It folds to me in the big blind and I look down at ace-7 offsuit. This is a close candidate to call, but I don't think my opponent is going to have medium strength hands like king-9 suited, jack-10 suited, pocket deuces, and missing those hands, his range is going to be artificially strong, so I decide to make the fold here. A similar situation unfolds just a few hands later when the same opponent decides to go all in once more, this time for 460,000. It folds to me on the button, and now I look down at ace-queen. Having seen this player go all in twice in short succession, I'm starting to wonder if his range might be a little bit wider than I initially thought. And even if it's not, ace-queen is going to function much better versus his range, so this time I decide to make the call. The small blind and big blind both get out of the way, and my opponent shows ace-6 of clubs. So a great spot for me, I've got him completely dominated, so of course the flop comes jack-7 deuce with 2 clubs. I'm starting to clench like I just ate a cheesy gordita crunch. The turn takes a little bit of the edge off when it is the 5 of hearts. Just one more card to fade, and it is the 10 of hearts. I take this down, a pot of over 900,000. This pushes me past the 2 million mark for the first time in the tournament, and it is a good thing because the blinds are about to increase from 1530 to 2550k, a 66% increase. I'm not exactly sure what they're thinking with this structure. Maybe they hired Dr. Evil as their tournament director?
$100 billion.
A couple of orbits pass after this, and players are dropping left and right. In fact, we are down to 5 and 5, just one player away from the final table. That's when this hand happens. It folds to me in the small blind and I look down at 4-6 offsuit. Under normal circumstances, I might consider folding this at some frequency, but we are playing 5-handed with a 1 big blind ante. So I'm not folding here. In fact, I'm not calling either. I'm going
All in.
All in.
not to get too into the weeds here, but the reason I go all in is I expect a massive overfold from my opponent in this spot. In fact, if we look at the solution generated by ICMizer, they're supposed to be calling 35% of the time with hands as weak as King 6 offsuit and King 3 suited. I expect my opponent to call those hands about as frequently as I get matches on Tinder, so I'm not worried, I'm all in, and holy fuck he beat me into the pot. My opponent shows Queen Jack of Diamonds, so I'm not dead here. All I need is a 4 or a 6 to take the lead, and he flops a flush.
Horseshit.
Well, there goes 12 big blinds into the abyss. But I still have 25 big blinds here, so no need to panic. I'm just going to keep playing my game. So next hand, when the hijack opens to 125,000, and I look down at ace 3 of diamonds, I'm going to make the call here like I normally would, especially with this big ante. The button folds, but the small blind decides to go full Larry Sellers and fuck me in the ass.
You see what happens, Larry?
He's all in for over 700,000, and when the original raiser folds, I've got a decision to make. With over 1.1 million already dead in the pot, I only need around 36% equity to make this call. I figure ace 3 of diamonds is right around that range, so after spending about a minute deliberating, I make the reluctant call, and my opponent shows ace 10 offsuit. So once again, I am the one needing help here to avoid doubling up another opponent, and wouldn't you know it, he flops me basically dead and rivers a flush. So another questionable decision that leads to another double up for one of my opponents. Speaking of doubling up my opponents, you can now win chips off your favorite poker vlogger on Club GG. Throughout the week, I'll be on Club GG playing these games as they have been unbelievably lit. I'm also going to be doing a live stream game where I hop into Discord voice chat and hang out with you guys, really trying to give it a home game type vibe. So if you'd like to check out these awesome games, or you'd just like to drop by the table and say hello, hit the Telegram link in the description below. As I'm counting out the chips I owe my opponent, I am in shock. In the past 2 hands, I've lost 1.4 million, 66% of my chips. Watching the stack that I patiently built over hours get absolutely decimated in just 2 hands, it's hard not to get discouraged in moments like these. But when Josh Fram and the Timberwolves lost 2 players to injury in the state championship game, did they give up? Fuck no, they didn't. They recruited a once-in-a-generation talent that led them to one of the greatest moments in Washington State sports history. And even though I don't have a dog with me, I got that dog in me. I'm not giving up. It's time to rally. Let's fucking do this. First hand, I've got Jack 4 of hearts in the big blind. The button limps, the small blind completes, and I check, and we see a Jack 8-6 rainbow flop. The small blind leads for 100,000. I've got top pair. I'm all in for 690,000. Next, I've got Jack 10 offsuit on the button. The hijack opens with a limp. I overlimp, and the big blind checks. The flop comes King Queen 5 with 2 hearts. Both players check to me. I bet 60,000, and everybody folds again. A few hands later, I've got Queen Jack of Diamonds in the small blind, the cutoff limps, the button folds, and I decide to rip in 1.28 million. Ace Queen in the cutoff. The hijack folds and I jam a little over 1 million. Queen Jack offsuit in the big blind. I get a walk? King 9 offsuit in the cutoff. The hijack folds and I decide to open to 200,000. The button and small blind fold, but the big blind makes the call, and we go heads up to a flop that comes 10-8 deuce with 2 clubs. He checks, I bet 1 big blind, and once again I take it down. That's 6 hands, 6 victories, and all of a sudden I've gone from 700,000 all the way to 1.7 million without showing down a single hand. We're still 10-handed though, and everybody is locked in, battling, super focused on making the final table.
I didn't look.
The button inexplicably decides to jam his remaining 700,000 blind. The small blind makes the call and I get out of the way.
Good luck. Give me a 7. Come on. 7. Come on.
Shockingly, the blind all-in does not pan out, and our friend and his blanket are out of the tournament. More importantly, we are now 9-handed and taking our seats at the final table. Before we get started with the action, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about final table strategy, specifically ICM. I don't want to get too deep into the subject, but in short, when our winnings are not tied to how many chips we accumulate, like they would be in a cash game, but instead are tied to a prize pool and payout structure, our strategy changes significantly. What does that look like in practice? Well, it's highly dependent on your stack and the stacks at your table. But in general, we want to be playing tighter preflop, running fewer bluffs and not calling down as light, and trying to win without going to showdown. So all of this is spinning through my mind as we get things underway and I look down at ace-queen offsuit in the very first hand of the final table. Opening to 2 or 2.5 big blinds is definitely the standard play here, but I'm a little hesitant to do so. If you've been paying attention this vlog, you'd probably agree that the biggest mistake players have been making is keeping their VPIP number above the average age of a US senator. So if I make a standard open here, I'm fairly confident that we'll go 3 or 4 ways to a flop out of position, which is not very in line with my ICM strategy. To avoid this situation, I decide to raise big, and when I say big, I mean
All in.
that's right, I ship 1.6 million under the gun with ace-queen offsuit. Now I realize this looks a bit reckless, but I think this is a very reasonable response to the ICM mistakes our opponents are making. Besides, I rarely expect to get called and son of a bitch! The hijack goes all in for 1.2 million and shows pocket kings. So I am in a world of hurt. I'm going to be left with less than 5 bigs with the blinds coming up right after. Why do I play tournaments?
It's over, coach. Let's forfeit. We've only got 4 players. What are we gonna do?
Hold your head up and do the best you can. We'll beat them with 4 guys.
Hey, get out of there!
I catch not 1, but 2 aces to take me from the brink of elimination all the way up to 3 million chips. Thanks, buddy! And it's a good thing I have these extra chips as I spend the next 30 minutes doing a bunch of folding. Really just hoping for somebody to make a small mistake, maybe get too attached to a wheel ace, or get a little sticky with a pocket pair. And that's precisely what happens. The hijack jams 800,000 with ace-jack offsuit and the button makes the standard call with 8 high. Obviously the button goes ahead and flops a flush because why the hell not, while the rest of us look on as we get one step closer to first place for absolutely no fucking reason.
Look at us. Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
With that elimination, we are now 6-handed and officially in the money. Well, sort of. The first place prize is $3,140, not too bad, but the 6th place prize is 5 tournament chips or $150 of tournament credit. I don't want to sound entitled, but I don't give a shit about these tournament chips. In fact, if I won the tournament chips, I would probably feel like the poor bastards on Legends of the Hidden Temple who were given this consolation prize.
Today, people are packing light, refreshing Star-Kissed tuna in pitas, salads, and subs.
The blinds have increased to 75-150 for this hand that starts with an under-the-gun limp. Another player limps before it folds to me in the small blind and I look down at King 4 of clubs. I decide to make the call and the big blind checks, so we're going 4 ways to a flop that comes queen, queen, tray with 2 clubs, giving me the king high flush draw. Pretty good flop, but I'm not looking to bet into 3 players, so I check. The big blind checks before the under the gun player goes all in for 1.6 million. The other limper folds and now it's back to me. I don't think I can ever make this call, but I do take a moment to think about it because realistically, what could he possibly have here? Would he really jam 2x pot with a queen here? It seems unlikely. My best guess is he has something like pocket fives, maybe a worse flush draw. And while we do have reasonable equity versus those holdings, I still have to worry about the big blind behind me who could have a queen here at some frequency. The other major concern is that the cutoff player currently has around 6 big blinds, making him the short stack at the table. I need to be extremely judicious with my chips here, as the cutoff is very likely to be all in the next orbit or two. So with that in mind, I make the laydown and hope to find a better spot. It looks like my patience is going to pay off, as just a few hands later, the blinds have increased to 200,000, and our friend in the 6th seat has seen his stack dwindle all the way down to just over 1 big blind. With a big blind and a mandatory all-in just a few hands away, it looks like he's decided to make his stand here as he goes all-in for his remaining 225,000. I'm next to act on the button, and I get the welcome sight of Ace-King suited. Not much of a decision here, I'm all in for my remaining 1.8 million. Both blinds fold and the hijack flips over King-9 offsuit, so a great spot for me. I've got an opportunity to lock up another pay jump and earn some much needed chips.
I got 2 hours. Alright.
Double flush draw.
Double flush draw.
Give me the tournament chip.
The board runs out clean, I eliminate another player, and I've now locked up 5th place and $520. Not bad, but I'm looking for more. We're still 5-handed at 200,000 when the same player who's limped a few times limps once more, this time from the cutoff. The button folds, the small blind completes, and I look down at 6-7 offsuit in the big blind, so I check. The three of us see a very interesting flop that comes 6-4-3 with 2 hearts. The small blind checks, and though I could lead out here, I'd like to see what the cutoff player does considering he limped off a very short stack, so I check as well. The cutoff does not disappoint as he goes for the exact same move as last time, jamming 1.5 million 2x pot. The small blind folds and I go into the tank. The last time we saw him make this move was on a paired board, and it seems like his most likely holding in that situation was a medium strength hand like a pocket pair or a flush draw. Those holdings seem very plausible in this situation as well, and against those specific hands, I'm doing okay, not great, around 40 to 50% equity. But I also wonder if I'm ranging my opponent a bit too narrow. You see, hand reading is a lot like playing the game of Pictionary. We're given small pieces of information over time, trying to put the puzzle together and figure out that this is fucking baseball, Jimmy? This hand has 6 fucking fingers. I know you're only 7, but Jesus Christ, man. Most of the time, the picture makes sense once you understand the intention of the artist. But what happens when you encounter an artist who doesn't care about the rules? Hell, maybe doesn't even know the rules. But truth be told, I don't have a great read on this player. Maybe he's got precisely the hands I outlined earlier. And this is a 2x pot shove with a lot of ICM considerations, so I think a fold is probably in order. But I'm pretty exhausted at this point, and I'm almost too tired to decide, which is pretty evident when I say,
I'm too tired to decide.
So in go my chips, and there goes my tournament life, basically operating on just vibes at this point. My opponent flips his cards, and it turns out he had a very coherent vision for his hand. It's a pile of shit. He flips over ace-deuce offsuit, and I am in the best shape I could possibly imagine. If I can just dodge an ace, I'm going to earn an almost full double up and secure another pay jump. So here we go, the biggest run out of the tournament so far. The dealer peels an 8 of hearts on the turn. That's safe, neither of us have a heart. Just one more card to go, and it is the 7 of clubs. Let's go. I scoop the biggest pot of the tournament, which pushes me past 4 million. I'm now firmly in 3rd place behind 2 big stacks, with the player in the 5 seat as our short stack, hovering around 1.5 million. He's actually been one of the more competent players at the final table, doing lots of folding and choosing his spots very carefully. So this isn't going to be any sort of cakewalk. I'm really going to have to lock in, focus, and oh, he's all in blind.
Jesus Christ.
That's what he tells us anyways, and I'm kind of inclined to believe him as he flips over Jack-9 suited. Not exactly the hand you want to get called with, especially with a player in the big blind who's shown a willingness to call with damn near anything as evidenced by the fact that he calls with Queen 4 offsuit this hand. Yes, that's correct. So another opportunity to earn a pay jump for basically no reason, and holy shit, I've said that a lot at this final table. The flop comes king, queen, queen, the big blind flops trips, so I've locked third place up and am now ready to do battle for the final. No! Just kidding! The cutoff drills a gut shot on the river to double up and stay alive. To make matters worse, his stack is getting closer and closer to mine, so now it's serious, it's time to lock in, it's time to battle, and oh, he's all in again. This time he's got pocket eights in the small blind versus ace jack in the big blind. One time dealer. Please no spade.
You got the spade. You got the spade.
Don't you fucking dare.
Ooh, didn't do it.
Nice playing with you.
And just like that, my opponent is eliminated and we are finally down to the last 3 players. It's now time for that all-important question.
Will it blend?
Whoops, I meant...
Have you drank your grandson's pee?
Of course, I'm talking about, do you want to chop? And thank God the answer is yes. After counting our stacks to do an ICM chop, the numbers come out like this. First drops all the way to 2325, second goes up a little bit to 2168, and third gets a big boost jumping all the way to 1715. As you can see, the short stack really benefits as I earn over 75% more with the ICM chop. So I collect my chips, head to the cashier, get paid in an unethical amount of 20s, and go out into the night $1,500 richer. But more important than the money, I've gained the knowledge that tournament poker is alive and very well. One quick announcement before I sign off, I recently launched a Discord server trying to build a community and trying to connect with you guys in a different way. I'm especially interested in helping people improve their games, so I'm in the server answering questions, doing hand reviews, and I've even got a couple friends who are professional coaches doing the same as well. So if you're looking to improve your game, check out the Discord server. I'll drop a link in the description below. Anyways, that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things, and I will see y'all in the next video.